What's going on, you guys? Pat Platypus here, and one of my absolute favorite cartoons of all time, pieces of animation of all time actually, Steven Universe, recently had its 3-year anniversary, so what better time to finally talk about the series? These are my thoughts on Steven Universe. I know you guys like anime content, and I do have a Dragon Ball Super Episode 65 review for you guys up at the same time as this one. So go ahead and check that out after you finish this video if it didn't pop up in your subscriptions for whatever reason. And tomorrow, a Doctor Strange movie review, pretty late, I do apologize, and also a Seven Deadly Sins chapter review if the chapter is worth talking about. So maybe just Doctor Strange tomorrow, maybe both, we'll see. Anyways, Steven Universe. Like I said before, the show celebrated its 3rd anniversary, which is really, really awesome. And I've been watching the show probably for, I don't know, I'd say a year and a half, probably about. Well, once this year wraps up, I'll have been watching it for about a year and a half. And this really is a show that I was sleeping on for a while. Not as hard as Adventure Time, because Adventure Time was like, I was in that mindset of like, all these modern cartoons suck, just look at the art style and the previews, and to be fair, Cartoon Network cut some shitty fucking previews for these shows, but I finally watched Adventure Time and I was like, yeah, it still kind of sucks, but then I gave it another chance and I was like, well, it's kind of funny, and I kept going, and it got emotional and philosophical and super deep with its plots and twists and stuff, and Adventure Time's a great show, it's amazing. And I was like, well, maybe Steven Universe is great because I've heard a lot of great things about it, even though it looked really bad, just like Adventure Time. I heard it has some fighting in it. I'll give it a shot. So glad that I did because it is so goddamn good. It's hard to even figure out where to begin with this show. I mean, I could give you guys a basic plot synopsis, but the show really has no status quo, so it's constantly changing in terms of story. I could tell you what it starts like, how it starts, but where it's at now is completely different. And if you don't know what I mean by status quo, it's basically the set standard for a show. Like, if you're looking at like Family Guy, for example, Peter Griffin's always going to be an idiot. They're always going to talk shit to Meg. You know, Brian will always, I don't know, be a pretentious dick. Whatever, you know what I mean? Occasionally a character will die. Occasionally something will happen to slightly change the continuity, but overall, a status quo is the set standard. It's, you know, what the episode resets back to by the end, no matter what happens. You know, if there's an episode of SpongeBob where Patrick becomes a genius, which there probably is. I think there actually is. Um, they'll have him be stupid by the end of the episode again because him being smart, carrying over into multiple episodes, would break the status quo. That's pretty much my basic understanding of it. There might be more intricacies to it, but that's pretty much it. It's just the set standard, and Steven Universe does not have that. The characters are constantly evolving and changing and growing, and new characters are introduced, new villains are introduced. It's crazy. I mean, it's not a new thing every single episode, but it changes enough to where you can say, yes, this show does not have a status quo. Which I think is really, really cool for a cartoon to do that, first of all, because that rarely ever happens, at least not until this current, you know, Cartoon Network renaissance, as people call it, or this cartoon renaissance. Which obviously is talking about shows like Adventure Time, Gravity Falls, Over the Garden Wall. All amazing shows. Steven Universe, though, I put at the top of these shows, and the reason for that is, I mean, for one thing, it does appeal to me personally because I do like anime, and Steven Universe really touches on being an anime sometimes with some of its little references and the way they'll animate certain fight scenes. And there was a double-length episode with fucking eye catchers. Like, it was kind of crazy. So yeah, Steven Universe is a lot like an anime, but that's not exactly the only reason why I love the show. Another reason why I love the show is the themes it goes into are unique and interesting for a, I don't really want to call it a kid's show because that kind of sells it short. I feel like anybody can enjoy this show. But for a show primarily aimed at the Cartoon Network audience, obviously, which is kids, it goes into some really cool themes that even adults can appreciate. I'd say it has a leg up over something like Gravity Falls, where I love Gravity Falls. It's hilarious, great story, great mystery, great characters. But you pretty much know where the episode is going in terms of its moral from like the first 2 minutes of the episode. Like whatever problem they establish, you already know what the moral's going to be. Fairly standard in that regard. Steven Universe, not so much. Steven Universe will go into things like identity, abusive relationships, very bluntly actually, dealing with loss, dealing with your inner demons, anxiety. One character even saying that she's not sure she should have been born. Loss of people you love, all kinds of really like heavy themes that are handled with a lot of grace and just handled really, really well. But the show is not always hitting you with the feels train. It is a very funny show at the same time with lots of great humor, lighthearted moments, cheesy moments in a fun way. That is one thing about the show that could turn people off, is that it is heartwarming. It can be a little schmaltzy at times. I don't think in a bad way, but then again, I am used to the show at this point, so it's hard to really say if you're a new audience member. I mean, there are songs, well, I think they have really, really good lyrics with multiple meanings, and they're just awesome songs with really good melodies. Others could be turned off by that. I got used to it. I don't think every song is a hit, but I think a lot of them are really, really great. The show can also be very adorable, which I know can maybe turn some people off. I don't know. Just seeing the Gems interact with Steven, being moms to him, or him interacting with his semi-girlfriend Connie. They're kids, you know, so they have kid moments, and I think they're fun. I think they're cute. I can get behind stuff like that and sort of have fun with stuff like that, but that might not be to your liking. But I love that balance of tones where you have the heavier stuff and then you have the more lighthearted stuff, and it just blends together to make this really great, really pleasant show. That on top of all of that has great continuity, story arcs, lore for the Gems and their whole culture, and just, it's so cool, and world building and all that stuff. And I haven't even talked about the characters yet. The characters are all multi-layered, developed, fleshed out, very real feeling, if that's a horrible way to put that, but they're so well fleshed out, they're so well realized, and it's just a fantastic group of characters. And these aren't flawless characters either. They're enjoyable, they're fun, you get where they're coming from, you appreciate their complexity and their depth. But there are sides to some of these characters that can be downright nasty, and that's so realistic and really just adds to them. You know, they have flaws, and like I said, these flaws can be nasty, and it's cool seeing them learn to grow past these issues, and it's such a damn good show, and the way they tackle these characters is so good. I guess the action is worth mentioning. The action in the show is actually surprisingly damn good. The animation in the show is fantastic. At first you're watching it and you don't really think any too much of the animation. It kind of looks like a standard cartoon. And the early episodes, I'll get into the early episodes because I have kind of an issue with them, but as the show goes on, the art gets a lot more structured. They do a lot more with the fight scenes. They do a lot more with facial expression. The facial expressions in the show, the way the characters can cycle through multiple expressions within a couple of seconds is very difficult, and the animators are very talented for pulling that off, and it just works so damn well. So the animation in this show is very, very good, and the fight scenes are really, really cool. There's impact to some of the punches. It's well choreographed. It's more than what you would expect from a show that looks like this. And now I guess I should talk about the early episodes, because I don't want to say that they're bad, but I think this is the biggest hurdle in wanting to get into Steven Universe, because when I was watching the first few episodes, I was grabbing onto a couple of the jokes. I was grabbing onto the lore that they would mention. I was grabbing onto like when they would say, "Oh, Gems can do this new power," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." They added a bit to the Gems and fleshed that stuff out, and I was grabbing onto that lore stuff early on because there wasn't much else to grab onto. The first 6 or so episodes and a few more after that, they're just not all that compelling, to be honest, and they feel very, very different from the later episodes. There's nuggets of what the later episodes would be in there, but the art style's different, the voice acting is different, the tone is slightly different. But if you power through them, and again, they're not even bad, I just think they're kind of underwhelming, but once you power through them and you get to stuff like episode 7, episode 10, episode 12, if I'm remembering those right, they get a lot better. And by the time you're finished with like the first half of the first season, when you get to like episodes 25 and 26, all 11 minutes, by the way. So like, if you were to combine 2 episodes together, it'd be like 13 episodes. Those last 2 episodes of the first half of the first season are fucking some of the best animation. And I don't mean animation in terms of like the actual animation, but like animation as in just animated shows, anime, fucking cartoons, whatever. Some of the best I've ever seen. Again, I'm not talking about the animation quality, I'm talking about the show in general, even stacking up to anime from Japan or from other countries. I love those two episodes. So once you get there, I mean, if you're not a fan of the series by then, you're probably not going to enjoy it, but I think there's a lot of good episodes early on. It's just that some of them are just kind of, Steven's voice was not, like, the voice actor didn't quite find his, niche with Steven, so he sounds a little annoying at times, and I don't mind that Steven can be annoying at times. I think that makes him a very realistic child character. One of the best child characters I've seen, because he's very genuine, and he's very big-hearted, and naive, and curious about things, and he can be a little annoying, like kids can be, and it doesn't ruin the character, you know what I mean? And the voice does get better, so yeah, it really is a show that evolved from what it was into what it is now, and it's just crazy to see the difference. I actually enjoyed the earlier episodes upon rewatching them, but that's probably just because I grew to love the characters, so there's kind of a bias there. But when I first saw them, I was like, this show is okay. I'm latching onto some of this lore, but eh. And as I kept watching, it got better and better and better. So that's Steven Universe. I'm so glad I started watching this show because it's absolutely amazing. It has deep, rich characters, deep, rich lore and mystery, great action, great animation. It can be adorable. It can hit you with the feels hard as fuck. It can be emotional. It can tackle serious issues. It can tackle lighthearted issues. Only other thing I want to mention about the show is that it doesn't have, I wouldn't say filler episodes, because I feel like all the characters who are human that Steven hangs out with in the town, I feel like they're going to go somewhere. They have their character arcs, they're going to go somewhere in the overall story, and these episodes aren't bad, but my only real issue is that sometimes the human episodes, is what the fans like to call them, they're nowhere near as interesting as the gem episodes. And it's not just because, oh, I want to see plot or whatever. It's that they are genuinely not as good a characters as the gems, which is unfortunate. And it is good, though, that the show really has no filler episodes. Like, there's episodes where you watch them and you're like, all right, that didn't have anything to do with the plot, but it could come back later or will come back later. But yeah, it's a fucking really great show. Like, I mentioned a few of the flaws towards the end, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a fantastic show. One of Cartoon Network's absolute best. Easily in my top 3 for cartoons, and probably in my top 10 for just animated programming in general, including anime. I mean, I would easily put Steven Universe over something like JoJo. I mean, I love me some JoJo, but it just doesn't compare in terms of world building, lore, foreshadowing, character complexity. It's just not even a comparison. Though JoJo I would give the edge in creativity. Some of those stands, man, holy shit. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Steven Universe. I probably didn't do the show justice, because I really hold it in high regards. But have you guys seen the show? What do you guys think about it? Did this video convince you to see it? I have no idea if it did or not, but I hope you do check it out because I think it's a great show and you probably really enjoy it. If it's your kind of thing, again, definitely not for everybody. But yeah, go ahead and sound off in the comments below. Definitely want to know what you guys have to say. You can also follow me on Instagram or add me on PSN. I'm Pep Platypus on both. You can also give this video a thumbs up and share it on social media. Both those would help me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already, or if you like what you see in here. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.